Today I'm going to show you how to make mashed potatoes for 2 people. Now if you're making for larger groups, just use more potatoes. First off, I like the potatoes to be long and narrow. They make them easier to peel. This is a medium-sized potato. If you can get really large potatoes, that's less peeling and a lot less work. The first step in the process is to peel the potato. Hold the potato in your hand just like so, and start peeling on the lengthwise of the potato. Rotating the potato as you go. When you're finished, turn the potato to the end, peel one end, flip it over, peel the other end. Then using the tip of your potato peeler, you can take out the small little eyelets that you might have missed. Maybe even just a little peel here and there, a little water, and there you have it, one peeled potato. Now, we're going to cut up the potatoes, but before we do that, we need to get a medium saucepan. This is a 3-quart saucepan, and fill it about halfway full of water. The next step in the process is to cube the potatoes and boil them. So I'm going to take my potato, I'm going to make 2 slices lengthwise. Then I'm going to lay my potato flat. Notice I left that piece alone. Once down the center. And then I'm going to cut about 1-inch chunks. Grab those and put those in the water. Now the reason that we put the water in here first is that the water helps keep the potatoes white. Otherwise, if we just leave the potatoes in the air, the potatoes will generally start turning brown, and we don't want brown mashed potatoes. Cook your potatoes over the stove. I'm going to use a high heat at this point until the potatoes start to boil. Once they boil, I'll turn it down to about medium and leave it at a low rumble on the boil. As we wait for the water to boil, now's a good time to add just a little bit of salt. I'm going to add just 2 little pinches of salt. Now, if you're making more potatoes, obviously, you're going to want to use a little bit more salt. Now, as we get close to boiling, just be careful to turn down the heat right away when it starts to boil, because otherwise you will boil over. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this one down to about just a little bit over medium, just to keep it at a low rumble. We're going to go ahead and give the potatoes a quick stir here as we boil them. Now, the length of time is really going to depend on the size of the chunks and also altitude and the type of potatoes you're cooking. Smaller the chunks, the quicker those will get done. Now, we've been boiling for about 10 minutes or so, so I'm going to go ahead and check my potatoes. And what I'm looking for the larger chunks. The largest chunks tend to take the longest, so I'm going to just take my fork, put it in there. Notice how that fell apart. I would say that's just getting ready, but not quite. I want them a little bit more tender than that. Notice that they still just come apart in a couple of pieces. I want to see them fall apart and crumble into multiple pieces. Now, I think the potatoes are done. I'm going to look for the largest piece in this pan I can find. I'm just going to push that against the side. Notice how that just falls apart there. I barely have to even push on it. Take your back of your fork and just push on one of those potatoes. Notice how it just crumbles there. That means these potatoes are ready to be mashed. To drain these potatoes, I'm going to take the lid, place it on top. I'm going to turn on some cold water. I like to run a little cold water in the sink with this as I drain it. Just move the lid just slightly to the side, and then gently pour that out. Now, you can use a colander if you'd like, but I find this method much cleaner and nicer because that way we only have one dirty pan. One of the things you want to make sure of is to leave the lid on. There's a lot of steam in there and you want to keep those potatoes hot. I'm going to go ahead and add about a 1/4 cup of butter, just about a half a stick of butter. Throw it in there, and I'm just going to put the lid right back on there, and I'm going to let that melt for about 2 or 3 minutes. The next step in this process is to ricing the potatoes. Basically, this is your standard ricer. It's got holes in the bottom, it's got a plunger, and you're just going to put the potatoes in there and push those through. I like using a ricer because the potatoes come through the hole, and this basically removes all of those lumps. If you're using a hand mixer or a kitchen mixer, that's how we generally get lumps, unless we just mix the heck out of them and then we just wind up with real stringy potatoes. I like to use a ricer. Most chefs like to use a ricer, so that's what we're going to do here. When using your ricer, you want to make sure you get the pan really close to your pan with your potatoes. Also, use the biggest bowl that you can find. The larger the bowl, the easier it is to rice in the potatoes, and you won't get potatoes all over the counter. So I'm going to remove the lid. I'm going to take some of those potatoes and I'm going to throw them right in here. Fill up my ricer, and then I'm just going to squeeze those through right into the pan. Open it up and fill it again. Now, remember that cube of butter I threw in there? Well, once we're all done ricing those potatoes, you're going to find just a little bit of butter at the bottom of that pan. You want to scrape that butter in there because that butter is flavor. The final step in this process is to add a little bit of milk and stir it into the potatoes. So I'm going to just add, maybe about a 1/4 cup at the most. Start with that and mix that in. Notice I'm going around the sides, bringing that into the middle. Oh, look at that. That's what we're talking about. We're talking creamy mashed potatoes. Now, if you notice that it's a little bit dry, you can add some more milk. But I'm thinking this one here, this is looking pretty good. I would say that that's a really good batch of mashed potatoes for 2 people. There you have it.